Hope everyone is good again. خواستم به فارسی هم سلام خیلی گرمی رو خدمت همه دوستان و عزیزان عرض بکنم. امیدوارم که حال همتون بسیار خوب باشه و خوشحالم که امروز تونستیم همدیگه رو دوباره ببینیم. By the way, I put in the chat a link. So if you are not getting an email from me, that means you are not on my mailing list. So definitely just this 2 or 3 questions, email, name, and where you live and that kind of a thing. Just click on that and it will take you 15 seconds to fill that out, and then you'll be able to know when I'm doing these live casts. I am looking to do it hopefully once a month and maybe twice a month, but let's see how it goes. I am also learning this whole studio setup here, and I have now become a pro at this thing called Streamlabs OBS, Open Broadcast Software, which is a wonderful thing. So with that said, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the music that I was playing. So I'm going to play it for you again while I talk. This music is done by a band called Triolay, which is a underground band in Iran. They have very beautiful music, and they did this one with Rumi's poetry. This one starts by saying that نبود چنین مه در جهان ای دل همین جا لنگ شو, which translates literally to there is no such moon in the world, and the moon is about the beauty of the moon. There is no such moon in the world. Oh my heart, kneel right here and now. That means that we have found the most beautiful moon of the world right here. And don't think, don't ponder, don't go through the normal process of being attracted, thinking, being separated, and falling in love. Just instantaneously fall in love now.
ترسانیم گر جنگ شد گو جنگ شد نبود چون این مه در جهان ای دل همینجا لنگ شد از جنگ می ترسانیم گر جنگ شد گو جنگ شد.
And then it starts talking a little bit about the fact that you know how it is that when you fall in love there is an upheaval that goes on with you and with your life, and it is sometimes bitter, it's very hard, you cry, and it's that whole period of falling in love is likened to a war that goes on between the two sides. And then the second verse after it says, there is no such moon as beautiful as this one, O heart, kneel right here and now. Then it says, well, what about if this war or this upheaval comes along? And then it says, upheaval, well, upheaval, let's go. And such is the journey of someone who falls in love. They live a different life. They start adopting a whole new way of seeing the world. And although it is sad and difficult, and it takes a lot to bear it and go forward, but in the end, the new life that's given to that lover is worth every second of that suffering that led to it. So a couple of words about the moon while we're at it. I'm waiting for a couple of more people to join in. In Persian, moon, or the word mah, is also an adjective, and it means the uttermost beauty. And if you call a woman and say this woman is like Ma, به فارسی you say چقدر زن ماهیه. That's kind of beyond even beautiful. It is beautiful, and it is also lovely, and it is also someone that you're in awe of their beauty of. So when it says there is no such moon in this world as this one, and oh heart, kneel right here, it is talking about this infinite beauty, and it is talking about the beloved, like we talked about last time, and some of you may be new, so we will talk about that a little bit more again. For those of you who are joining us, make sure you click on that link if you are not receiving emails from me, so you will hear about future events. Okay, with that said, we can go forward. You can type any questions you have in this chat, and once in a while I'll take a look at it and try to answer your questions. This time we're going to talk a little bit about the philosophy behind Rumi, and in the second part that starts at 3 o'clock, we're going to actually read the poem that I have a translation in English for you. It's a special kind of translation that I will be talking more about. Okay, so let's go to the first slide here. So common beliefs. We want to basically understand as much as possible about this concept of what I'm calling nameless here. Just by the virtue of the fact that we call it nameless, it becomes something that's very difficult to define. If you can't name it, well, what is it? So let's just call it nameless and then start attaching attributes to it. Nameless is at the very end of the staircase that I talked about last time, the staircase that I talked about last time. Let's revisit it really quickly here. If this is you watching me talk about a Rumi, the staircase goes up one step, and then Rumi in his book of Shams obviously says that no matter how far in the skies I may fly, I will be at the feet of Shams. And then he says, no, I will not be at the feet of Shams. That's a pipe dream, because Shams's stature is so high that I will not even be close to his feet if I go into the furthest points in the sky. So Shams had a mentor, and he had a mentor, and then we go all the way up and ask ourselves, where does this whole staircase lead up to? If all the beauty in the world was conveyed to me through Rumi, Rumi did not create this beauty. Rumi only is pointing to it, it's describing it, it is alluding to it. And then he says, you know, all this beauty that I am describing to you, I didn't make this. Shams of Tabriz gave me all that through that 60-day conversation that we talked about. And then Shams, if you ask him, says, well, I got all of this knowledge from whoever his mentor was. And if you ask his mentor, he says, I got it from my mentor. And that whole chain continues to the point that there is no end. It's just everyone learns from the other. No one owns it. No one is it. No one is to be named after it. It's just a direction that we can point to. It's the better of us. It's the higher of us. It is the beauty that is at the end of this whole staircase. So that's why I called it a stairway to heavens. And This picture shows you, that's actually the Milky Way, and it looks like a staircase that goes up into this nameless. So we can call it beloved, and we can also call it on in Farsi, which means that. And then after that is nameless, and after that is silence. You don't even bring it to your tongue. You just feel it, you absorb it, you let it seep in. So let's go back to our common beliefs. So that nameless, which is up here, emanates its existence and its beauty to what I call these first representatives. And the first representatives are, on the one hand, the prophets: Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, Zarathustra, Krishna, and then there's other ones. And each one of them has a name for their God. In the case of Moses, it's the Yod He Vav He. And in Jesus, that becomes Jehovah, which, by the way, is Yod He Vav He pronounced out. And Muhammad worships Allah. Zarathustra talks about Mazda, and Krishna talks about Brahma in Hinduism. And each one of them has a book that's associated. So these are the prophets and religions on the one side. Then there is a set of awakening poets. And the ones that I know, I wrote down, there's obviously Rumi, there is Hafiz, there is Ferdowsi, and there is Goethe, and there's many more. But these are just some examples. And each one of them goes to a source that they refer to. Rumi refers to Shams, and his book is Divan Shams. Hafiz refers to the old Magi, and his book is Divan Hafiz. And Ferdowsi refers to what's known as the farmer man, that scholars believe the farmer man was 8,000 years ago, who told the story of Shahnameh, and Ferdowsi turned it into poetry, but the story is many thousands of years old. And Goethe, his source is Hafiz, and he has many books that he's written. So these are similar. These awakening poets in many ways are similar to these prophets. And where do they get their inspiration, and where do they get all this beauty that they bring us? And that is what is known as a process called revelation, which means that the truth was revealed to them. And instead of truth, we use the word, the word, in Farsi, Sokhan. And many people think in Farsi, Sokhan is the same as a speech. It is not. Sokhan has a very particular meaning, and that is the word that comes from the nameless. But the word that comes from the nameless is not dictionary words. These are not the words that we use in order to speak. The word comes in many, many different formations and many, many different ways. It's what reveals to us what the nameless intended. And we'll talk more about that too. One thing I wanted to say, well, we can do that a little later, but let's go to the next slide. Underneath these first representatives of the nameless are representatives, second representatives, which become particular people, like some rabbi in New York, or a mullah in Iran, or the Pope. And under these guys become Sufi masters and Naqals and so on, which kind of are the representatives of the representatives. And these are the people that then have more representatives under them. And unfortunately, all of these paths always lead to some kind of a donation, support, money, and it becomes kind of like a business. So a few things before we go on. The word is revealed to the first set of people, meaning that they feel it, they hear it, it's in their existence. From the second part, it comes from reading. These rabbis and mullahs and cardinals and whatnot, they read the books given to them by the ones who the word was revealed to. And then the third representatives speak. They talk about the readings that these other people did. So as we come down here, it becomes harder and harder in its form. First, it is subtle, which is the revelation. Then it is a reading, which is a little bit less subtle. And then it becomes speaking, which is the least subtle. And if we look at it in this scale here, we're going from the visible, physical, formed, and what I call the hard flow world to the invisible, abstract, formless, and the soft. So as we come down, it becomes harder and harder in terms of its manifestation. And by the way, this is us down here, not US, this is us. And in order to really understand and feel the nameless, Rumi tells us that no words should be spoken, no books should be read. You should connect directly to the nameless. And let's see how that works. This is what Rumi suggests to you. He says, from the nameless, through the word, through Shams, and through Rumi, we should feel the nameless. That's the first thing that happens. And then after that, wait a minute, did we just go in a circle here? Because if we went into if we take this particular configuration, this becomes God and prophets and us, and there's a book involved here. So what's the difference? It's just another religion. Or is it? And we will talk about the difference between this method of getting to the nameless versus any organized religion, and what Rumi understood from Shams that caused him to write 3,700 poems, or should I say, he didn't write, he poured 3,700 poems while dancing without ever stopping, and other people wrote down what he was saying. He never went back to correct one word in all the 3,700 poems that he wrote. So what is it that caused that? Why did he go from a normal everyday man to the dancing dervish that poured that poetry? And we will talk about that just in a bit here. So the question was, did we just go in a circle and we just invented another religion without really admitting to it? And the answer is no, and I will tell you how that is a no. Basically, this is the simplest way that we need to be in touch with the nameless, and the word of the nameless should seep through us. And once that happens, the most miraculous phenomenon you've ever known will happen to us. And we will talk about how what kinds of things that can do. So if you have any questions, again, go ahead and type them into the chat. I want to tell you, my dear friends, the entire key to understanding Rumi and what he is talking about is this right here, is the nameless. all his poetry is about the nameless. Although he says time and time again that it is all from Shams Tabrizi, it's all coming from Shams. But remember this picture here, it's the direction of Shams. It is this direction upwards, which goes to the nameless. And once you understand the nameless, once you connect to the nameless, once you communicate with the nameless, once the nameless gives you ideas, once the nameless drives you, once the nameless possesses you, then amazing stuff happens. Okay, let's take this slide and take it a little deeper. From the nameless, the word emanates down. And again, the word is not spoken words. We will talk about what the word is, but remember the word. And the other way, the other thing that happens is from our position to above. It is wonder and a mysterious sense of gravity. The reason you are here right now in this particular session is because there was a gravity towards something. There was a gravity in Rumi's words that pulled you in here. Why is that gravity there? What caused that gravity? What is it that you are gravitating towards? And the gravitation from the lower to the upper towards the nameless is known as love. Love is the gravitation of the lower to join the higher. And that will work every time that you call anything love. That's the key to it. Abu Ali Sina, Ibn Sina in English, Avicenna is the first one that defined love that way, which is the gravity that pulls the incomplete towards the complete. That was the definition that he gave. And here again, no one owns the word. Not Rumi, not Shams, not me, not anyone. We can only feel it, praise it, and be amazed by it. I want to give you a little bit of a anecdote here regarding what this whole business of the word is. The anecdote is, let me go back to myself so I can talk to you a little bit more intimately. The anecdote is, imagine we are all little puddles of water in some forest, and we are reflecting the sky. This puddle has a feeling that it must have come from somewhere. Where did it come from? It must have, there was something that created it. Especially when it looks at the other puddles around it, there's other ones too, and there's highly suspicious that something created it. What is that thing? It can't see what it is that created it. It can only imagine it. Maybe it will name it something. But no matter what it does, it cannot imagine what is it that created it, number one, and number two, how to connect to it and get back to it. And think about it. What is the source of that puddle in the middle of the forest? So some of you might have guessed that it was rain that came down and made the puddle, which is absolutely true. Where did that rain come from? The rain came from the clouds. And where did the clouds come from? They came from the ocean. So this puddle has a connection to the ocean. It is from the ocean. It is the ocean. And it dreams about joining the ocean one more time. But it can't really name the ocean. It can't understand the ocean. It can't connect to the ocean as it sits. So going back to our stairway example, the only way that this puddle can feel the ocean is the wind that blows from the ocean to it, because it brings the smell of the ocean. And funny enough, that wind is also invisible. You can't see the wind, but you can see the footsteps of that wind. So first of all, there is the ocean. That the puddle came from originally. And then there is these sculpture-like things. Who made these things? This was made by the wind. It formed a beautiful piece of art. And that wind left its footsteps in this visible sculpture. How curious, because you can see the word everywhere in everything around you. It's the footsteps of that ocean. And I invite you to witness the footprints of the word in one picture here. The word is everywhere there. It is what has constituted the totality of that phenomena right there. Here's an interesting verse from the Bible, the New Testament. John the Baptist says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." Let that seep in for a second. The Word was God. Speaking of God, God is the process of naming the nameless. And once you name that nameless, and you call that God again other names, that becomes the source of being different. That becomes a source of being competitors. That becomes a source of animosity, becomes a source of war, becomes a source of killing. And we've witnessed that many times in the history of the world, that although all the gods of all the religions claim the same thing, because they were named, that starts to separate people from each other. So if we take the name away and only think about the adjectives, that is infinite, it is beautiful, it is the creator, it is the source of everything that we believe in, without naming it a name, all the religions will become the same. And we are all saying the same thing and speaking the same language. We have to take the name away That is why it has to be nameless. As soon as you name it, you are inviting trouble. And at some other time, many sessions later, we can talk about why do things work that way, that when you name them, you start inviting darkness into the equation. So we talked about the role of the nameless and the fact why it is a nameless, and then that ties directly into why Rumi says so many times in so many different poems that be silent. He says that to himself. Be quiet, be silent, don't talk anymore. Talking actually hurts the word. And then he says, بی گفت مردم بو برد زانسان که من بویدم, which means that without any words, the people who think like me will discover the garden that I have smelled without ever me speaking a word. They have to smell it, and smell even is too physical. They have to feel it. They have to find it on their own. They have to discover it and be absorbed by it. Okay. Any questions or comments? Go ahead and put them in the box there. And we can go into, we talked about this already. Let's talk about the question that I asked, is this another religion if we consider the nameless God and then Rumi the prophet and then his book, the Bible, and then us as the followers? Is it the same as any other old religion? And it's not, and let me give you a question here that will lead to what the difference is. So I call this question the double whammy. And that is, I'm going to ask you a question and think about this for a second. If I asked you to put half of your earthly wealth, and that can be just cold cash, you liquidate your wealth and then take half of it, put it in a box, and one dark night leave it near the homeless camp and disappear. No one saw you, and you cannot tell anyone that you did that. No one except you will ever know that you did that. Ever. Even after you die, your children will not know that you did this heroic act and this selfless act at the cost of half of everything you ever owned in the world, and you just gave it for the sake of good. There was no reward in there. There was not even a reward of other people patting you on the back and saying, hey, that was incredible. That was a great job. That was, not too many people can do that. Really appreciate it. You were really good. Thank you. No, you don't even get that. If no one ever would know that you did this act and gave half of everything you have away in one dark night, after you did that, how would you feel? How would you feel after that? How would you deal with it yourself? We are all earthly beings. We can be honest with each other. Probably we would have some remorse. We would feel like we were stupid, kind of. You know, what was that all about? What did I get for that? I got nothing for that. No one will ever even know. Even the homeless people will not know that I gave this to them. Nobody would know. Was that a dumb thing to do? Half of everything I own. Well, It is very difficult to do that without anyone ever knowing. However, not only you gave half of everything you own away, which was the first whammy, the second one was that no one would ever know about it. It takes a hero to even do the first one, while telling the entire world that they did it and become known as a benefactor and a philanthropist and such. But not anyone ever knowing about it, that's very different. And I want to tell you here, my friends, that there have been people on the face of this earth, and they continue to be people on this face of the earth, that do this all the time. They give, they help, they assist, they bring good, they do everything that they can. And as a matter of fact, they take a very definitive step so no one ever knows it was them. Why is that important that no one knows that it was ever them? Let's see if the next slide helps us. And this was about the very bitter feeling that you get when you first give that half of the wealth away. After you do this a few times without anyone ever knowing that the good came from you, it becomes a little bit more digestible. Then it becomes okay. Then it becomes a satisfying thing. And then it becomes enjoyable. And then you discover that that is the joy itself. Then you can't stop. And then there will be this extreme love for just being and existing. And then comes contentment. And then you have arrived. Then you will be possessed by the nameless. You will be revealed the secrets by the nameless. And then comes some eternal feat that you will accomplish in this lifetime through the word that has touched you, such as so let's go back to this creed and tell you the reason I said all of this is the fact that in this hierarchy that I showed you here, which is the conventional religion, the difference between that and this is that this becomes a creed. The difference between a creed and a religion is a creed is something that's deep inside of you. You never speak about it. You never advertise it. You never tell anybody else that they should be doing the same thing. You step back on a higher plateau, and all you do is give with love. And that act becomes the most satisfying and the most I want to say content generating feeling that you could possibly have in this world. And once that happens, you have arrived, and a symphony like the one you just heard will be sent to you through the word. Any questions? Yeah, David says that after he died, people found out the singer George Michael gave away millions of dollars without ever announcing he was the donor. And again, the reason for doing that is you are doing it on the inside. No one ever knows that you are doing that. And that starts to build a particular character in you. And for one thing, you're going to fall in love with yourself first. You're going to love yourself for doing that. And then from that point, the doors will open to you with the word touching you. Okay. And this is very true. There can be other reasons that people give anonymously. So don't get me wrong. It's not always this. If somebody gives it anonymously, it could be that it's in their creed, but it could also be the fact that they don't want anyone to know that they have a lot of money and they're giving it away, so that they're going to have a million people calling them. So that can happen also. So remember I said that you cannot describe the nameless. You cannot put into words what the nameless is about and the reasons behind that. Well, I have something else for you. I'm going to play 2 minutes of this for you and then see if you catch on how wonderful life is while you're in the world. Obviously, he is thinking that putting the feeling of how wonderful the world is while she is in the world will be totally underserved if it is uttered in regular words. Rumi says the same thing, that after reciting the most beautiful, the deepest, most philosophical, most romantic, most elating poem in the world, he tells himself, why did you do that? Why did you say that? Why did you use words? You ruined it. And he tells to himself to literally shut up. He tells himself that no more words. And one famous poem, he says, خاموش کن کاندر سخن حلوا بیفتد از دهن بی گفت مردم بو برد زانسان که من بوییدم, which translates roughly into be silent, because while you're talking, halwa, which is a sweet, will fall out of your mouth. In other words, your speech will no longer be sweet if you talk too much. خاموش کن کاندر سخن حلوا بیفتد از دهن بی گفت مردم بو برد زانسان که من بوییدم. Without speech or without words, people will find the way to the garden that I have smelt the scent of. The scent of that garden, which basically tracks me to that garden, kind of like a dog that tracks it. In Farsi, it's actually bu bordan, has that connotation to it, although it means scent and smell too. But without any words, people will track the path to that garden that I have smelled. Not with words. Although he says the most beautiful words, he burns them down because that is a disgrace in his mind in describing the nameless. Okay. They're asking me why do you, to repeat why Rumi is different from religions. This kind of takes a few iterations to fall into place, but I will try it another time, a second time. A religion is something that you actually tell yourself that I am of this religion. You tell people that. You go out and you say, I am whatever, I'm Christian, or I'm Jewish, or I'm Muslim, or whatever, and you're very proud of it too. And you should be. Yes, you subscribe to that particular religion. And speaking very frankly, the religions have a promise of you having a reward in some better, grander, greater form, in terms of salvation, in terms of going into heavens, in terms of going high up into the ranks of the angels, whatever it is. You will become that if you do good in this world. On the other hand, the creed is totally hidden. I never say anything like that. I never even let you know that I am doing that. I never even mention the word. It is in my fabric to do that. It's kind of like Batman. You think about Batman, a superhero. Why do we love him so much? Why is he such a great guy? He's certainly not doing it for a reward. He's not on Gotham City's payroll. He is not doing it because he wants to flaunt it to people. He's even hidden. Nobody even knows who he is. He's got a mask on too. And his identity is never known. It's because he's doing it for no other reason than doing that particular good in the world. It's not even the reason. It is the same thing. There is no other way to be. It is just that. And in that particular instance, it is me and it is the nameless, and we are together in heart and harmony, and we don't have anybody in the middle. That's the difference. Okay. What time is it getting to be? 2:57. I'm going to put up the coming soon again for the people that are coming in for the second part. I'll be rejoining you in about 3 or 4 minutes. Make sure that you get on the mailing list. It is a link in the chat. It's like the third one down. Take a look at it and click it if you have not got an email from me. I will be talking to you soon for the second part where we actually go and read the poem. Bye-bye now.
بر کنارت میند، گه بر لبت لب میند، گه بر کنارت میند. چون این کند رونا شد، چون آن کند رو چنگ شد، چون این کند رونا شد، چون آن کند رو چنگ شد. تنهایی مپز در خانه خلوت مخز شد، روز عرض عاشقان پیشا پیشاهنگ شد. می باش همچون ماهیان در بهرایان و روان، گر یاد خشکی آیدت از بحر سوی گنگ شد. در عشق جانان جان بده، بی عشق نگشاید گره، چون این مه در جهان، ای دل همین جا لنگ شد. از جنگ می ترسانیم، گر جنگ شد گو جنگ شد. نبود چون این مه در جهان، ای دل همین جا لنگ شد. از جنگ می ترسانیم، گر جنگ شد گو جنگ شد. گه بر لبت لب میند، گه بر کنارت میند، گه بر لبت لب میند، گه بر کنارت میند. چون این کند رونا شد، چون آن کند روشنگ شد، چون این کند رونا شد، چون آن کند روشنگ شد.
The music you're hearing is from the group Triole, that is a wonderful group from Iran. Not very well known. They should actually be a lot more famous for what they've done than however much fame they've gained, but their work is absolutely fabulous. I will put their name in the chat for you if you want to follow them. Well, welcome to the second part of our second live cast. I'm Farzad. It's good to have you here. Uh, if anybody is new, let us know if you are getting our emails or not. If you're not getting our emails, the third item in the chat is a link to our mailing list. So do that, and then I'll keep you in touch. I'll keep you abreast of the new live cast that we're doing, and we'll make sure to see you there. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you get notified through YouTube of anything else that we post. The sessions are recorded. You can always come back. You can even live right now go back and see some of what we've already covered. So you can be whatever 20, 30 minutes behind us and finish a little later. So in the second part of the live cast, I am going to be reading a poem from Rumi himself and analyzing it. The first part generally is more of giving you an idea of how to actually understand what Rumi is saying, what is he referring to when he talks about something called, for example, Naqash Jadu, the magical painter. Uh, uh, who is he talking about? And if we just simply say that is God, then we have not quite understood what is it that he's saying, because even if we say the word God without really knowing what God really is, it doesn't do us a lot of good. So there is a few prerequisites that need to be known about Rumi before we dive into his poetry. And in the first live cast, if you haven't seen, be sure to catch that too. And in the previous section of this live cast, I talk a lot about that, of the fact that all of these are reflections to the nameless. All right, so I think there's a 20-second delay between between me and you. So go ahead and type in the chat if you can read this or you can't see it, or if there's any issues. I think it should be good. And here we go. This particular poem is I've called it That Breath. His poems do not have titles. They're just one after another, like a machine gun, with 3,700 of them in a row, which takes a lifetime, probably more than a lifetime, to go through it and absorb it. In the 30, 35 years that I've been a student of Rumi, I probably have covered no more than 10% of his poetry. So you can imagine what it would be like to try to cover all of it. This is one of the 3,700. And a little bit of grammatical information about this poem. It is called a particular template called a ghazal. And what's interesting about a ghazal is that is the way that they rhyme. And what I have done in the translation of this ghazal, which is one-to-one with the English, is I have stayed as true to the words of the ghazal as possible. And the cost of doing that is it becomes a little strange in the English version of it. And I guess that's about it. It's not totally poetic and beautiful, like when you do a translation into a poetry, like you get inspired by it, like the works of, for example, who's the guy that did Essential Rumi? He is getting inspired by the Ghazal. Coleman Barks, that's what I'm thinking about. He's getting inspired by the Ghazal and then reciting another poem in a beautiful language that is inspired by it. It's probably 30-40% of the original word. This I have tried to keep in the 90 to 100% of the translation. And at the same time, I have kept the beat and I have kept the rhymes. So it's kind of cool what has happened here. So I was talking about the structure of a ghazal. If you look at the very first verse, that breath which you are the self, yar as a thorn comes to you. Comes to you is the rhyme here. And in Farsi, it is ayadat. If you look at this at the very end of the Farsi, which goes right to left, right before that exclamation mark, you see that ayadat is the last word, and on the first line, second line, fourth line, sixth line, all the even lines, you see the ayadat, just like you see in English, that comes to you, every other one. That is the template of a ghazal. The very first, the second, and then from there the fourth, sixth, eighth, and all the even ones rhyme all the way down, and then the beat is 100% kept. A little caveat to the 100% keeping of the beat, or the rhyme, or the template. Rumi sometimes plays around because he was dancing and twirling and twisting and pouring this poetry. At times he violates the rules of the ghazal and he actually invents words or says words the wrong way, misspells words so that they fit in. It's like a truck going at 160 miles an hour down the highway and it has no time to correct course or change or look back or do whatnot. It just goes and doesn't stop, whatever it takes. So he does violate the strict rules of Ghazal once in a while, but he does it in the most beautiful way. It's kind of like a naughty child that once in a while does things that they're not supposed to do. To be contrasted with Hafez, who until the day he died, he corrected and edited his poetry, and that is because his poetry is like jewelry that's set from one verse to the other without ever violating any of the rules of the Ghazal. For the people who speak Persian, I'll do one verse here. For example, زانیار دل فریبم شکریست با شکایت گر نکته‌دان عشقی بشنو تو این حکایت. That's the beginning of a very famous ghazal by Hafez. And at some point he said, you know, زانیار دل فریبم, no. How about زانیار دل نوازم شکریست با شکایت. Del Nawaz and Del Farib in Farsi, no one would ever know the difference between those two words, especially when you're reading a poem and you're going by. But Zanyar Del Nawaz has N's and Z's and V's in it. Del Farib doesn't have that. He was that meticulous about picking even the way the letters in the word harmonize together so that it adds to the beauty of it. In the case of Rumi, 95%, 5% of the time, as I said, the plays that he does with the ghazal are actually beautiful, and they can be picked apart and talked about in their own way. So coming back to this ghazal, this one is called That Breath, and the beat to it I've written down for you on the bottom. See over here, it says tan ta ta tan tan ta ta tan tan ta ta tan tan ta ta tan. So that goes tan ta ta tan 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 tan ta ta tan. It's a dance, it's a joy, it's a rhythm, it's a beat, and it moves you. So I have kept that beat in the translation, as well as the rhymes, which is something you obviously lose if you just translate it normally. So I read the Farsi and then we read the English. آن نفسی که با خودی یار چو خار آیدت. That breath which you are the self, yar as a thorn comes to you. Yar is the nameless. And there's another way of calling the nameless. Yar in Farsi has probably a half a dozen meanings. And I'll take a minute here to tell you a little bit about what yar is, because that is a common word in much of the Iranian romantic poetry. When I think about yar, the first thing that comes to mind is, for those of you that remember, in Tehran, the summers are extremely hot. And like many countries in Europe, in the afternoons of summer especially, the entire city closes down from like 1 o'clock till 4:30 or so, and people go home, have lunch, and then they sleep, the siesta. Then they get up at about 5 again, open the store until 9 at night, and then come home for dinner, and that's the day. During summer times, when we did not go to school and we were on summer vacation, and it was hot and the parents were sleeping, and God forbid if you made any noise to wake up the dad, that was the end of the world. The best thing to do was to go down into the street and meet the other kids your own age and play soccer. And it was interesting the way that we played soccer right in the middle of the street where the cars crossed. And there wasn't that many cars because everybody was sleeping, but there were a few during the game. But the whole protocol of taking the ball and coming to the side, letting the car pass through, and then restoring the game exactly the way it was a whole tale of its own. So we are now in the street in the heat of the summer playing the soccer game. And the very first thing that you do in that soccer game is you pick yards. You pick your teammates. Yar keshi is the process of choosing your yars. Yars are the ones that are going to be playing on your team. They're going to be defending you. They're going to be watching your back. They're going to help you win. They're going to protect you. They're going to be friends with you. That's one yar. Another yar is that many times, especially Khayyam refers to, is the yar that is the case of a man and a woman that are yars together. My yar in life is my wife, for example. Another yar is the nameless, which is the most omnipotent yar of all. That also helps you, protects you, and keeps you going in this world. And there's other, and then there's also I also conjure the picture of two kindergartners that are holding hands and walking down the street. They are yars too. But in this case, the yar is the capital yar with a capital Y, which is the same as the nameless. So it's saying that that breath which you are the self, you are the self, you are yourself. Yar comes to you like a thorn. It goes into you like a needle. And that breath which you are not self, Yar, of what use comes to you, with an exclamation mark, not a question mark. And that breath that you are not the self, look at what an incredible use that Yar comes to you. In other words, there is some incredible thing that Yar will be bringing to you when you are not with the self. And in Farsi, one nafasi ke bi khodi yar che kar ayadat. And then that breath, and this breath which you are with the self and you are not the self, repeats 4 or 5 times. That breath which you are the self, you are the hunt of mosquito. An nafasi ke ba khodi khud to shikar pashe'i. And that breath which you are not self, elephant, the hunt comes to you. So in the case that you are not with the self, in the case that you are with the self, you are the prey of a mosquito. So imagine the size of a mosquito and the prey of the mosquito. The mosquito eats the prey. So it's got to be really small when you are in the case of being with the self. And when you are not with yourself, you will be the hunter of the grand elephant. So you will go on top of the elephant instead of on the bottom of the mosquito. That is the spectrum that you will be traveling from being as the self and not being as the self. And the whole point of this ghazal is to figure out what does it mean to be with the self or not to be with the self. Let's read on and see if it becomes more transparent to us. That breath which you are the self, sorrow cloud closed you are. So, an nafasi ke ba khodi baste abr ghussa'i. That means that when you are with the self, you are the sorrow cloud that is closed, kind of like the cloud itself, and you are the cloud of all sorrows. And that breath which you are not self, moon to the side comes to you. One nafasi ke bi khodi mah be kenar ayadat. And that means when you are not with the self. Remember before, when you were with the self, they were the sorrow cloud. When you are not with the self, moon comes to your side. What does it mean that moon comes to your side? What does the moon come to the side to in the sky? It comes to the side of the sun. And that means you shall become the sun itself, to be contrasted against the sorrow cloud, which actually covers the sun. There's a lot of innuendos going on here. So when you are with the self, you are the closed cloud of sorrows, and when you are not with the self, you become the sun itself. Sunny day versus cloudy day. That breath which you are the self, Yar pulls away from you. Yar, the nameless, is pulling away from you, is running away from you when you are with the self. And that breath which you are not self, Yar's spirit comes to you. Not the Yar itself comes to you, but its spirit comes to you when you are not with the self. آن نفسی که با خودی یار کناره می کند وان نفسی که بی خودی باده یار آیدد. And then finally, that breath which you are the self, melancholy as fall you are, fall as in autumn. So you are as melancholy as autumn when you are with the self, and that breath which you are not self, winter as spring comes to you. It means that winter will feel like spring to you when you are not with the self. آن نفسی که با خودی همچو خزان فسرده ای وان نفسی که بی خودی دی چو بهار آید. Day is the first month of winter. So before we go on, so I want to make sure that everybody is following what we are talking about here and the fact that there is a lot of emphasis on being the self and not being with the self. And this ties right back into the creed idea that we were talking about. Remember when we said the creed, the difference between that and a religion is the creed is internal. Nobody ever knows about it except yourself, and all you do is good and no one will ever know about it. And you actually start liking and enjoying that. So in that sense, if you start enjoying the act of doing help and assistance and good to the others, you have sacrificed yourself in that. It's kind of like I put half of my wealth in a box, and one dark night I left it by the camp of the homeless. I had to swallow a bitter pill to do that. Of course we do. I would, you would, everybody else that we know would also, if you just gave all of that away without anybody even ever knowing. So for that bitterness to comes absolute joy, the voice of the thing that's saying that you were an idiot by doing that, and why did you do that, and brings you remorse, brings you blame, brings you all kinds of issues, that has to be silenced, and that has to bow to the new me, which is the one that gives. So that is when you are without the self. And the one that wants to keep everything for itself, and it is blaming that other character that wants to give relentlessly, unconditionally, without any expectation, out and away and more. That is the character that is without the self, and the other one is with the self. Type into the chat if this is clear and we can go forward. If not, we want to make sure that it's clear before we go forward to the second part of this. I'm going to read this in Persian while I give you a little bit of time to catch up with the delay here and also type at it. آن نفسی که با خودی یار چو خار آیدت وان نفسی که بی خودی یار چه کار آیدت. آن نفسی که با خودی خود تو شکار پشه ای وان نفسی که بی خودی پیل شکار آیدت. آن نفسی که با خودی بسته ابر غصه ای وان نفسی که بی خودی مه به کنار آیدت. آن نفسی که با خودی یار کناره می کند وان نفسی که بی خودی باده یار آیدت. آن نفسی که با خودی همچو خزان فسرده ای وان نفسی که بی خودی دی چو بهار آیدت. And translating this thing a little bit more casually is, once you are selfless, Yar will come to you in so many ways. And once you are self-full, Yar will come to you like a thorn to your side. And then that when you are with the self, you are the hunt of the mosquito, and when you are without it, you will be hunting the elephants. So you go from the bottom to the top by going from the self full to the selfless, and the rest of it that parallels it. Anyone have any questions? Just type them in. Okay, so here is the pinnacle of this poem that's coming in, and although it is very hard to translate it into English, I think I've got maybe 50-60% of it translated. In Farsi it says جمله بیقراریت از طلب قرار توست. جمله بیقراریت از طلب قرار توست. طالب بیقرار شو تا که قرار آیدت. So I'm going to read the English. This may actually help some of the Persian speakers to understand the Persian part of this better. So it says, altogether your restlessness is the demand of restfulness. You are trying so hard to rest that you are continuously restless. You are trying so hard to find peace in life that you are not at peace. So the cause of your restlessness in particular is the demand of restfulness. And the word demand is very important. In Farsi, talab is very important. Talab in Farsi is exactly demand, which is used also in times when you're going to demand somebody to pay you back. You're going to send them a demand letter. In Farsi, it's the same thing, talab kari, az kasi. That's an attitude in life that if you are demanding that I must have a better life, why don't I have a better life? What is wrong? Why is everybody else having it and not me? I deserve it. I'm entitled to it. I was handed the shorter stick. And then having the attitude to demand it. Now, if you are demanding peace in life, you shall never gain it. How do you gain that restfulness or that peace? In the second verse, it says that become the restless passionate, so restfulness comes to you. In Farsi, it's a little bit more poetic. طالب بیقرار شو تا که قرار آیدت. Talib is the subject of talab. Talab is the verb. I don't know how many of you have ever been in a situation, especially with the work that you do, that you cannot think about anything else than the thing that has just possessed you. If it is something you're creating, it's a form of art. Sometimes it's a computer program you're writing. It happened to me when I was programming. You're building something. You are doing some activity that totally is consuming you. And in that situation, the next day, you wake up at 5 a.m. and you want to run back and continue. You don't even want to sleep. Sometimes you even forget to sleep. Sometimes you forget to eat. It's because that thing has such a pull that It's not letting you think about anything else, including eating or sleeping. That's when you become talib biqarar. It's like what Einstein went through. Some of you may know that Einstein used to just stare into his bookcase when he was coming up with the most outrageous claims in physics that time can slow down, or distances can shorten, or mass can increase on something. This was blasphemy at the time that he put it out there. And as a matter of fact, he was uh, mocked by other scientists of his time for many, many years, until he finally won the Nobel Prize after his theory of relativity was confirmed by that famous eclipse of the sun in South Africa. But he was thinking and being and living that vision to the point that actually people around him didn't know what to do with him. He was like a very strange and weird character. His wife would put money in his pocket and tell him, go out and spend this money on something, buy something, do something, go buy an ice cream. And then a week later, when she was ironing the pants, she would find the money in there untouched. That possession of that idea of your heart and soul is when you become talib. And that talib, or that passionate person, becomes so restless. So restless. Einstein couldn't sleep. They couldn't eat. He forgot to eat. He forgot to spend money. And that crazy restlessness of passion is when you will find the ultimate restfulness. Interesting that you find restfulness in the height of restlessness. But if you demand restfulness, you will be forever restless. That's what that is all about. So جمله بیقراریت از طلب قرار توست. طالب بیقرار شو تا که قرار آیدت. And with the same beat, altogether your restlessness is the demand of restfulness. Become the restless passionate, so restfulness comes to you. And then the two other sightings are kind of parallel to this. جمله ناگوارشت از طلب گوارش است. ترک گوارش ار کنی زهر گوار آیدت. So گوارش in Farsi is digestion. And it says the reason that you are getting all these heartburns and all these indigestions in life is the demand of digestion. It is you going and just putting everything in your mouth, demanding and wanting and just having the greed for this digestion. That is the reason that you are getting such heartburn. It's actually medically true as well. Altogether, your burn of heart is the demand of digestion. جمله ناگوارشت از طلب گوارش است. ترک گوارش ار کنی زهر گوار آیدت. Alone, once left digestion, poison gourmet comes to you. I told you it's a little weird because I've kept the beat and the rhyme, and this is the only way to fit these words in, but I'm hoping that the meaning is coming through. As a matter of fact, if some of you are touched by this poem and you want to do this in the poetic stylistic fashion, please go ahead and do that. And next time bring it and I will read it out loud for everybody. So we are at altogether your heartburn is a demand of digestion. And if you leave alone this damn digestion, if you forget about this digestion and pay no attention to it, poison will come to you like gourmet food. That means by giving away that demand and greed of digestion and leaving it aside, everything will become a gourmet food to you, including the worst of all, a poison. جمله بی مرادیت از طلب مراد توست ورنه همه مرادها همچو نثار آیدت. In Farsi we have this word called murad as opposed to murid. Murad is when one's wish comes true. When one's wish comes true, that is when you get to your murad. And murid is when you are the murad yourself and other people are your murids, meaning they want to come to you. For example, it's kind of like the followers of Rumi are called Muridan Rumi, were the followers of Rumi, Muridan, because he was the murad, he was the end of the path of the wish that they would become this at some point. So جمله بی مرادیت از طلب مراد توست ورنه همه مرادها همچو نثار آیدت. So why are you not getting to your murads? Why are your hopes failing? Why is it that your wishes are not coming true? Altogether, your hopes failing is the demand of your wishes. Again, if your wishes are demanding, all your hopes shall fail. And if not, every wish in the world collectively comes to you. So in Farsi, we have also this word nesar. Nesar is kind of like when the Shah was ruling Iran, when he was like coming through his entourage into the streets, people would throw flowers at his feet. That is nesar kardan, meaning you actually give something valuable but put it at the feet of the person that you really love. So it's saying that if you are not demanding of those wishes in life, if you are not in that demand mode, if not, every wish in the world will be nesard to you, meaning will be thrown at your feet, which I've here said collectively comes to you. Then here is a pretty interesting reverse psychology verse. عاشق جور یار شو عاشق مهر یار نی تا که نگار نازگر عاشق زار آیدت. So jor in Farsi in the literature is when the beloved turns her back to you and walks away and says no. The physical lover can do that, when you fall in love with a woman and the woman basically turns around and leaves you and says no, that's jor. To be contrasted with mehr, the second one, which is the love, actually the beloved coming and with open arms. So it's telling you that fall in love with that parting, with that leaving, with that back position of the yar. When the yar walks away and turns its back to you, fall in love with that. Because if you do that, that beloved, that heart to get beloved, will not only come to you as a lover, it will come to you as a weeping lover. It will be crying to be in your arms. I have a funny way of explaining this, and that is those of you who like cats can identify with this. Somehow, us cat lovers fall in love with the cat not paying attention and walking away. And on the other hand, once you become familiar with a cat and you know how to handle cats, the best policy is to ignore it for some time, and then all of a sudden you see a little tail touching your foot, and if you turn around to touch it, oh, it will disappear again real quickly. And it's that game that is played. So the message here is to fall in love with the parting of the yar, and that should carry you through when life gets tough and it seems like nobody is coming to your rescue, and you feel scared, lonely, there is nothing in the world, and all the worst things in the world, and God forbid disasters befall upon us, and it looks like the yar or the nameless has turned his back or her back to us. It's saying that fall in love with that action. And if you do, the most beautiful things in the world will come to you. Because if you can fall in love with that and still feel love, that's the most difficult possibility in the world to be in. And then from there, everything is going up. I can tell you a little story here. We have a couple of minutes. I got my pilot's license when I was living in Boston in the late 70s, early 80s. And the airport there was called the Marlborough Airport near Framingham, Massachusetts. And this airport was 1,200 feet in its length, and it was like 1,250 feet in its length. And a Cessna needs at least 1,200. So you had about 50 feet before you went into a window that was a bedroom to someone's house at the very end of this thing. And add to that the fact that there was trees around, all around this airport in a rectangular form, that they had basically cut out the trees in a rectangle. And they were like, I don't know, 50, 60 feet high. So you had to come with the plane. You had to hear your wheels brush on top of the trees, take a nosedive, and then pull up all the way, and then pray to God that you will stop before the bedroom. I forgot to mention that you had about 5 or 6 feet from each wingtip to the planes that were parked on the side too. It was a nightmare. However, once we learned how to land there, you could land anywhere. You could land anywhere in the world. It was the toughest, roughest airport in the world, and then that made us good pilots because we could land anywhere. I came to Santa Monica Airport after that to take my check ride, and when I landed on the numbers, which is like the first couple of hundred feet of the runway, leaving the other 8,000 feet alone. And my the guy who was doing the check ride, my instructor, totally freaked out. What the hell are you doing? You got 8,000 feet. Why are you stopping on the numbers? And I said, well, this is how I learned. I got all of that room to spare. So in any event, when life gets tough and things go down and you can handle it by the fact that you are loving that that's happening because you believe in the nameless, when things turn around and get well, obviously you will feel a lot better than that. And if you could handle that situation, you can handle any situation. So عاشق جور یار شو، عاشق مهر یار نی، تا که نگار نازگر عاشق زار آیدت. And then this last one we need to spend a couple of minutes on, because this is an amazing, amazing montage of meanings and visions on top of each other. For those of you that don't know, Shams's full name is Shamsuddin of Tabriz. And in here, this is dedicated to Shams, like every other poem in the book of Shams. And he says to Shams that, or he says to us that something about Shams. And he says, King of the East, Shamsuddin, from Tabriz once arrives, moon and all the stars up above, so repulsive comes to you. Now, repulsive is not the right word there, but it's the closest that I could find to the word R in Farsi. R آمدن از یه چیزی من از این کار آرم میاد. Why is this important? So it's saying that once Shams of Tabriz arrives from the east, and by the way, geographically, Tabriz, the town in Iran, was east of Konya, where Rumi lived when he said this poem. So physically and geographically, he is coming from the east, from Tabriz to Konya. King of the East, Shamsuddin, from Tabriz, once he arrives, the moon and the stars up above will become not of much value to you. That's probably a better way of saying it. They become kind of worthless to you. Why do the moon and the stars become worthless? Because King of the East has another meaning too. What is the King of the East that comes from the side of Tabriz? You might have guessed it. It's the sun. The sun rises from the east. So King of the East, meaning the sun, Shamsuddin, once it rises from Tabriz on the east side of the sky, moon and the stars, what happens to them? Once the day comes, the stars all fade away. They are overwhelmed by the brightness of the sun. So moon and the stars will be basically, they will look worthless or faded or of no value to you anymore once the King of the East, Shamsuddin, comes from Tabriz. One more layer here is the word Shamsuddin, or Shams in Arabic means the sun as well. So now you got 3 or 4 things going there. King of the East, Shamsuddin, from Tabriz once arrived, moon and all the stars up above, so worthless come to you. خسرو شرق شمسدین از تبریز چون رسد از مه و از ستاره ها والله آر آیدد. اینجا میشه, we can also read it as تبریز چون رسد instead of as تبریز چون رسد. But if you say خسرو شرق شمسدین از تبریز چون رسد, mispronouncing Tabriz to Tabriz, it works better with the rhythm of the poem. Is another example of, when Rumi basically does his own thing. So let me know if there's any other questions here before we finish our session for today. I will be reading this in Farsi one more time for you guys in English that are reading it in English. Just count with me. I don't have a way of pointing to this thing yet. I haven't figured that out yet. But hopefully for next time I'll know how to use my mouse on top of it so you can follow with it. Just count the first one, second one, third one, fourth one, and just come down, and hopefully we will finish together. آن نفسی که با خودی یار چو خار آیدت، وان نفسی که بی خودی یار چه کار آیدت. آن نفسی که با خودی خود تو شکار پشه ای، وان نفسی که بی خودی پیل شکار آیدت. آن نفسی که با خودی بسته ابر غصه ای، وان نفسی که بی خودی مه به کنار آیدت. آن نفسی که با خودی یار کناره می کند، وان نفسی که بی خودی باده یار آیدت. آن نفسی که با خودی همچو خزان فسرده ای، وان نفسی که بی خودی دی چو بهار آیدت. جمله بیقراریت از طلب قرار توست، طالب بیقرار شو تا که قرار آیدت. جمله ناگوارشت از طلب گوارش است، ترک گوارش ار کنی زهر گوار آیدت. جمله بی مرادیت از طلب مراد توست، ورنه همه مرادها همچو نثار آیدت. عاشق جور یار شو عاشق مهر یار نی، تا که نگار نازگر عاشق زار آیدت. خسرو شرق شمس دین از تبریز چون رسد، از مه و از ستاره ها والله آر آیدت. Thank you everybody for sharing this moment with me. I love all of you, and I hope to see more of you later on. If you missed it in the chat box, actually I will type it again. This is to get on the mailing list. If you have not received an email from me, go ahead and click that and add yourself to that name. If you know other people that are truly interested in Rumi, also please share with them. Do not put it on Facebook. Do not advertise it. Do not put it anywhere that just random people will see. Just make sure that whoever you give it to is actually truly interested. And I'm going to leave you with the thought of عاشق جور یار شو عاشق مهر یار نی. Fall in love with the parting of the yar and not the loving of the yar. We'll see you next time, and I wish you a wonderful next week. Talk to you soon.